The training deck was full of soldiers from different worlds. Hannah Park stood near the wall, checking her rifle one more time. The weapon looked old compared to everything else in the room. It had a wooden stock with names carved into it. The metal parts were worn smooth from years of use. Her great-grandfather had carried this rifle in Earth's wars. Her grandfather had carried it. Her father had carried it. Now it was hers. She worked the bolt action. The sound was sharp and clear in the busy room. Several alien soldiers looked at her. Some of them whispered to each other. Hannah did not care. She had heard it all before. Captain Threlix walked over to her. He was Vanthorian, which meant he looked like a giant insect. He had 6 arms and a hard shell covering his body. His eyes were like black glass. He moved with the confidence of someone who had won many battles. "What is this?" Threlix asked. He pointed at her rifle with one of his front arms. "My rifle," Hannah said. Threlix made a clicking sound. It was how Vanthorians laughed. "May I see it?" Hannah handed him the weapon. Threlix held it with 2 of his arms. He turned it over, examining every part. His mandibles clicked faster. "This is ancient," he said loudly. Other soldiers stopped what they were doing to watch. "You use chemical propulsion? You must manually cycle the action after each shot." He worked the bolt himself. "And this wood? Why would you carry wood into battle?" "It works," Hannah said simply. Threlix clicked louder. His squad gathered around. "Look at this," he told them. "The humans still use weapons from their primitive era." He held up his own rifle. It was sleek and black. Lights blinked along its side. "This is a plasma accelerator. It never overheats. It never runs out of ammunition. It can track targets through walls. And it never misses." He handed Hannah's rifle back to her. "Your weapon is a museum piece." Hannah took her rifle and slung it over her shoulder. "My great-grandfather used this rifle in the Unification Wars. He survived. My grandfather carried it on Mars. He survived. My father carried it in the border conflicts. He survived." She looked directly at Threlix. 5 generations. "Never failed. Luck," Threlix said. "Technology is better than luck." "Maybe," Hannah said. Minho Bayak, another human soldier, walked over after Threlix left. "You okay?" He asked. "Fine." "He is a jerk," Minho said. "Ignore him." "I do," Hannah said. The exercise began 30 minutes later. Commander Do-Yun Choi briefed everyone. They would clear a simulated enemy station. Mixed teams. Humans and aliens working together. Hannah was assigned to Threlix's squad as an observer. She was not supposed to fight unless things went wrong. "Try not to slow us down," Threlix told her. Hannah did not respond. She checked her rifle again. 8 rounds in the magazine. 1 in the chamber. 9 total. She had not brought more ammunition. This was supposed to be a training exercise. Real bullets were not needed. The training deck changed around them. Holographic walls appeared. The lights dimmed. The simulation made everything look like an abandoned space station. Dark corridors, flickering lights, the smell of recycled air. It felt real. Threlix's squad moved forward. They were fast and efficient. Their plasma rifles hummed softly. Targeting lasers danced across the walls. Hannah followed behind, watching everything. She noticed how they moved, how they communicated, how they trusted their equipment. They had been moving for 10 minutes when the alarm started. The sound was different from the simulation alarms. These were real. Emergency lights flashed red. The holographic walls flickered and disappeared. Everyone stopped. "What is happening?" one of the Vanthorians asked. Commander Choi's voice came through their communicators. "All personnel, this is not a drill. Prisoners have escaped from detention. They are armed and moving through the ship. All training exercises are canceled. Return to your stations immediately." Threlix started giving orders. Everyone back to the main entrance. "Stay together. Stay alert." They started moving back the way they came. Hannah ejected the training round from her rifle and loaded a real one. The others heard the sound and looked at her. "Why do you have live ammunition?" Threlix demanded. "Always prepared," Hannah said. Before Threlix could respond, the main entrance exploded. The blast threw everyone back. Hannah hit the floor hard. Her ears rang. Smoke filled the air. She could not see anything for several seconds. When her vision cleared, she saw shapes moving through the smoke. Big shapes. Draknor. The Draknor were reptilian aliens. They were huge, almost 3 meters tall. Thick scales covered their bodies like armor. They had been prisoners on the ship. captured after raiding coalition supply lines. Now they were free and very angry. 20 of them poured through the broken entrance. They had stolen weapons from the ship's armory. Plasma rifles, grenade launchers, combat knives as long as Hana's arm. Defensive positions, Threlix shouted. His squad tried to organize. They fired their plasma rifles at the attackers. The bright bolts lit up the smoke. Some hit, most missed. The Draknor were fast despite their size. One Draknor, bigger than the others, stepped forward. He wore makeshift armor made from ship plating. His voice was deep and rough. I am Warlord Kron. You are now my prisoners. Drop your weapons or die. Threlix did not drop his weapon. He fired instead. The plasma bolt hit Kron in the chest. The warlord stumbled back one step, then laughed. His armor had absorbed most of the hit. Wrong choice, Kron said. The battle started. It was chaos. The Draknor threw grenades. More explosions. More smoke. The Vanthorians fired back, but their weapons started overheating. The sustained fire was too much for the plasma rifles. Warning lights blinked on the sides of the weapons. Some stopped working completely. Hana stayed low. She moved to the side, away from the main fight. She needed to see what was happening. She needed to understand the situation. Through the smoke, she counted 20 Draknor. She saw which ones were leaders and which ones were followers. She saw where they positioned themselves. She memorized everything. Another explosion. This one was bigger. It hit the support structure near the entrance. Metal beams fell. Debris crashed down. The entrance was completely blocked now. No one could get in or out. The fighting stopped. The Vanthorians were surrounded. Most of their weapons were dead. They had no choice. They dropped their plasma rifles and raised their arms. Kron's soldiers moved forward and forced everyone to their knees. Hana was not with the main group. She was off to the side, hidden behind fallen debris. In the smoke and confusion, the Draknor had not seen her. She stayed very still. She watched as the prisoners gathered all the coalition soldiers in one area. She counted. 15 soldiers were captured. Threlix, Minho, and 13 others, all on their knees, all with weapons pointed at them. Kron contacted the ship's command. Hana could hear his voice echoing through the training deck. He made demands. Safe passage off the ship, supplies, a ship of their own. If his demands were not met, he would start killing hostages. Hana looked at her rifle. 8 rounds. 20 enemies. Bad odds, very bad odds. She could not win a straight fight. But maybe she did not need to. She thought about her training. She thought about what her father had taught her. A bullet is not just a bullet. It is a tool. Use it right. She stayed hidden. She watched. She waited. And she started a plan. Hana moved carefully through the debris. Every step was slow and quiet. The Draknor were busy with their prisoners. They had not searched the entire training deck yet. That would change soon. She needed to move before they found her. She found a maintenance access panel behind a collapsed wall. The panel was small. She had to squeeze through. The space behind it was dark and narrow. Perfect. She could move through the walls of the training deck without being seen. The maintenance tunnels were cold. Pipes ran along the ceiling. Cables hung in bundles. Everything hummed with the ship's power. Hana had studied the layout of the training deck during her first week on the ship. She knew these tunnels existed. She knew where they went. She found a junction box with a damaged terminal. The screen flickered, but it still worked. She accessed the security cameras. The images were grainy and some cameras were broken, but she could see enough. 20 Draknor. 4 guarding the prisoners. 6 patrolling the outer areas. 3 at the blast doors trying to cut through from the inside. 7 with Kron at the center command post. He had taken over a weapons locker and turned it into his headquarters. Hana watched how they moved. The patrols followed patterns. They checked the same areas every few minutes. They talked to each other on communicators. They were organized. Kron had military training. This was not just a prison break. This was a tactical operation. She looked at her rifle. 8 bullets. She did the math. If she shot 8 Draknor, 12 would remain. They would know where she was. They would hunt her down. She could not win that fight. She needed a different approach. Her father had taught her many things about combat. The most important lesson was simple. Do not fight fair. Use every advantage. Make the enemy scared. Make them confused. Make them make mistakes. Hana started planning. She studied the security feeds for 10 minutes. She memorized positions. She identified weak points. She found opportunities. Then she started moving. The maintenance tunnels led her above the training deck's main floor. She crawled through a space barely wide enough for her body, metal pressed against her back. She ignored the discomfort. She had trained in worse conditions. She reached a ventilation grate. Below her, one Drachnor stood guard near a fuel line. The training deck used fuel for its holographic projectors. The fuel was highly flammable. Safety regulations required guards to stay away from it during normal operations. But nothing about this situation was normal. Hana positioned herself carefully. She opened the grate slowly. No sound. She brought her rifle up. The scope was old-fashioned. No computer assistance. No automatic targeting. Just glass lenses and her own eyes. She looked through it. The Drachnor was 247 meters away. A long shot, but not impossible. The problem was his armor. Drachnor scales were thick. Their bones were dense. A body shot would wound him but not stop him. He would call for help. Her position would be exposed. She waited. Patience was part of shooting. Her father had taught her that too. Wait for the right moment. Do not force the shot. Let the shot come to you. The Drachnor moved. He turned his head, looking at something on his communicator. When he turned, his neck was exposed. The gap between his helmet and his chest armor. The weak point. Hana breathed slowly. In, out. Her heart rate was steady. Her hands were still. She placed the crosshairs on the target. She calculated the distance, the angle, the slight air movement from the ship's ventilation. She adjusted her aim by a fraction. She squeezed the trigger. The rifle kicked against her shoulder. The sound was loud in the maintenance tunnel but muffled by the time it reached the training deck below. The bullet flew straight and true. It entered the gap in the Drachnor's armor. He dropped without making a sound. One bullet spent. One enemy down. Hana worked the bolt action. The empty shell ejected. She caught it before it could fall through the grate. No evidence. She chambered a new round. 7 bullets left. She closed the grate and moved away. She needed to be somewhere else before they found the body. The maintenance tunnels took her across the training deck. She moved fast but quiet. 5 minutes later, she was in a new position. The Drachnor found their dead companion. Hana watched through a crack in the wall. 2 of them approached the body. They looked confused. The wound was small, not like the massive damage their plasma weapons would cause. They checked his communicator. They searched the area. What killed him? One asked. I do not know, the other said. Tell Kron. They were scared. Good. Fear was a weapon too. Kron sent 2 more Drachnor to investigate. They approached the body carefully. They had their weapons ready. They expected an attack, but Hana was not where they expected. She was behind them. Higher up, she had a different target now. Not the Drachnor. The fuel line. The fuel line had been damaged in the earlier explosion. It was leaking slowly. Fuel pooled on the floor near where the first Drachnor had died. The 2 investigators were standing right next to it. Hana aimed at the damaged section of pipe. Not at the leak. At a spot 2 meters away where the pipe was already cracked. She squeezed the trigger. The bullet punched through the thin metal. Sparks flew. The fuel ignited instantly. The explosion was bigger than Hana expected. Fire rushed along the pipe. The pooled fuel erupted. Both Drachnor were caught in the blast. They did not even have time to scream. 2 bullets spent. 3 enemies down, but the explosion did more than kill the Drachnor. It damaged the environmental controls. Smoke started filling parts of the training deck. The ventilation system tried to compensate, but it was not designed for this much smoke. Visibility dropped. The Drachnor started coughing. Hana moved again. The smoke helped her. She could move more freely now. The Drachnor could not see as well. She found another position. This time near a structural support beam. Kron's voice echoed through the training deck. He was angry. Find who did this. Search everywhere. Bring them to me. 4 Drachnor started a search pattern. They moved through the smoke in pairs. They were careful. They checked every corner. Every shadow. They were looking for her. Hana watched them approach. They would pass directly below her position. She had studied the training deck's structure. She knew that one of the support beams had been damaged in the first explosion. It was holding up part of the ceiling, but barely. It would not take much to bring it down. The first pair of Drachnor entered the corridor below her. Hana aimed at the lead Drachnor's weapon. It was a plasma rifle. Plasma rifles had power cells. If the power cell was hit just right, it would explode, she fired. The bullet hit the rifle's power cell. The explosion was immediate. The lead Draknor died instantly. His partner was thrown back, wounded and stunned. The second pair of Draknor rushed forward to help. They moved right under the damaged support beam. Hana aimed carefully. She fired at the weakest point of the beam. The bullet struck. Metal groaned. The beam bent. Then it broke. The ceiling collapsed. Tons of metal and debris fell. Both Draknor disappeared under the rubble. The wounded Draknor from the first pair tried to crawl away, but the spreading collapse caught him too. 4 bullets spent, 6 enemies down. Hana worked the bolt action and moved immediately. Dust filled the air. The noise had been enormous. Everyone knew where that shot had come from. She needed to be somewhere else. She heard Kron roaring orders. The remaining Draknor were panicking. They had started with 20 soldiers. Now they had 14. 6 had died in minutes. They did not know where the attacks were coming from. They did not know what weapon was being used. They only knew that something was hunting them. Hana reached a new hiding spot. She was breathing hard. The crawl through the maintenance tunnels had been exhausting. But she could not rest, not yet. She checked her rifle. 4 bullets left. 14 enemies remained. She accessed another damaged terminal. The security feeds showed her what was happening. Kron had pulled his soldiers back. He was grouping them together. He was changing his strategy. No more patrols. No more searching. He was consolidating his position. He also gave a new order. If his demands were not met in 10 minutes, he would start executing prisoners. 1 every 5 minutes, Hana's communicator crackled. It had been jammed before, but the explosions must have damaged the jamming device. She heard Commander Choi's voice. "Anyone in the training deck respond." Hana kept her voice low. "This is Lieutenant Park. I'm in the maintenance tunnels." There was silence. Then Choi spoke again. "You are alive. Good. Stay hidden. We are cutting through the blast doors. We will have you out soon." "The prisoners?" Hana asked. "We are negotiating." "Do not do anything." "That is an order." Hana looked at the security feed. She saw Minho on his knees. She saw Threlix. She saw all of them. Kron was not negotiating. He was stalling. He would kill them all. "Understood," she said. But she did not mean it. She turned off the communicator. She had 4 bullets left and 14 enemies. The odds were still bad, but they were better than before. And she had an idea. Kron had made a mistake. He thought grouping his soldiers together made them safer. He was wrong. It made them a target, but not the kind of target he expected. Hana studied the security feeds again. 14 Draknor remained. 3 were at the blast doors, still trying to cut through. 4 were guarding the prisoners. 7 were with Kron at his command post. The command post was in the center of the training deck. They had barricaded themselves behind equipment crates and weapon lockers. She could not attack the command post directly. Too many enemies, too much cover. But the 3 at the blast doors were exposed. If she eliminated them, rescue forces could enter. That would change everything. The problem was distance and positioning. The 3 Draknor were spread out along the blast door. They had good cover. They were alert. And they were 300 meters from her current position. 3 targets. 4 bullets. She needed to make every shot count. Hana moved through the maintenance tunnels again. Her muscles ached. She had been crawling through tight spaces for over an hour. She ignored the pain. Pain was just information. It told her she was alive. Nothing more. She found a position above the blast doors. The ventilation shaft gave her a narrow view. She sat up carefully. The rifle rested on a pipe. Stable, solid. She looked through the scope. 3 Draknor. The first one was using a cutting torch on the door. The second one was watching the corridor behind them. The third one was coordinating with Kron over the communicator. Hana studied them for 5 minutes. She watched how they moved, how they breathed. She noticed that the one with the cutting torch had to stay in one position. He could not move while working. That made him the first target. But the shot was difficult. 340 meters. She had to shoot through a gap in the debris that was barely wider than her bullet. The environmental systems were still damaged, creating unpredictable air currents. Her scope could not compensate automatically. She had to do all the math in her head. She calculated the bullet drop, the wind drift, the temperature difference between her position and the target. She adjusted her aim, then she adjusted again. The crosshairs settled on the weak point in the Drachnor's armor. The neck joint. She remembered her great-grandfather's words. They were carved into the rifle's stock. Trust the weapon. Trust yourself. She took a slow breath, let it out halfway, held it, squeezed the trigger. The bullet flew through the narrow gap. It did not touch the debris on either side. It traveled 340 meters in less than a second. It hit exactly where she aimed. The Drachnor with the cutting torch collapsed. The torch fell from his hands. It clattered on the floor, still burning. 5 bullets spent. 7 enemies down. The other 2 Drachnor reacted immediately. They grabbed their weapons and looked for the shooter, but they still could not see her. The smoke and debris hit her position perfectly. Hana worked the bolt action, fast, smooth. Years of practice made her hands move without thinking. She chambered the next round. 3 bullets left. The second Drachnor moved toward his dead companion. He was trying to understand what happened, trying to find the threat. He stopped near the fallen torch. He knelt down to check the body. Hana fired again. This shot was easier. The Drachnor was stationary. No movement, no wind in his favor. The bullet entered his helmet's visor. He fell forward onto his companion's body. 6 bullets spent. 8 enemies down. The third Drachnor finally spotted her muzzle flash. He raised his weapon and fired. Plasma bolts tore through the ventilation shaft. The metal glowed red. Heat washed over Hana. She rolled to the side. The shaft was melting. She had seconds before it collapsed completely. She did not have time to aim carefully. The Drachnor was firing continuously. Plasma bolts were everywhere. She worked the bolt action one more time, brought the rifle up, found the target through the scope. The Drachnor's chest. Not a perfect shot. Not a guaranteed kill. But it was the only shot she had. She fired. The bullet hit the Drachnor in the chest. His armor stopped most of the impact, but the force knocked him backward. He stumbled. His foot landed on the fallen cutting torch. He lost his balance, fell. His head struck the edge of a metal crate. He did not get back up. 7 bullets spent. 9 enemies down. The ventilation shaft gave way. Hana dropped through the collapsing metal. She hit the floor hard. Pain shot through her shoulder. She ignored it. She grabbed her rifle and ran. Plasma fire was still coming from somewhere. The other Drachnor had heard the fighting. She found cover behind a concrete barrier. Her shoulder throbbed. She checked it. Bruised, not broken. She could still shoot. That was all that mattered. On the other side of the blast doors, she heard metal grinding. The rescue team was cutting through. The 3 Drachnor guards were dead. Nothing was stopping them now. Kron heard it too. His voice boomed through the training deck. Faster, cut through from our side. We need to leave now. But it was too late. The blast doors exploded inward. Rescue forces poured through. Coalition soldiers, armed and ready. Commander Choi led them. Kron reacted instantly. He grabbed the nearest prisoner, Dr. Valora. She had been treating wounded hostages. She was small compared to the massive Drachnor. He held her in front of him like a shield. A plasma pistol pressed against her head. Stop, he roared. Everyone stop or she dies. The rescue forces stopped. They could not risk hitting Valora. Kron was using her body as cover perfectly. Only his head was visible behind her. His remaining soldiers formed up around him. 11 Drachnor total. They started backing toward another exit. They were going to escape. Hana watched from her position. 1 bullet left. 11 enemies, and 1 hostage. She could not let them escape. If they got off the training deck, they would spread through the ship. More people would die, but she could not make the shot. Kron was too well protected. The angle was wrong. Even if she could hit him, he might pull the trigger reflexively and kill Valora anyway. Kron was almost to the exit. His soldiers had it open. They were going to make it. Hana needed to stop them, but how? 1 bullet. Impossible odds. Then she remembered something. The training deck's holographic system. It was damaged, but still partially functional. The control node was visible from her position. If she destroyed it, the entire system would fail. All the remaining holograms would vanish. The smoke would be visible in its true pattern. The Drachnor would be exposed. It was not a kill shot. It was something different. She aimed at the control node. It was a small target, a black box mounted high on the wall. 70 meters away, She had to hit a specific component inside the box to cause a cascade failure. She breathed slowly, calculated the shot, adjusted for every variable. She squeezed the trigger one last time. 8 bullets spent. The bullet hit the control node perfectly. Sparks erupted. The box exploded in a shower of electronics. The holographic system died instantly. Every false wall vanished. Every simulated object disappeared. The training deck was suddenly clear. Kron's soldiers were exposed. They had been using the holograms for cover without realizing it. Now they stood in the open. The rescue forces had clear shots at all of them. Commander Choi did not hesitate. Fire! The coalition soldiers opened fire. Plasma bolts lit up the training deck. 6 of Kron's soldiers went down in the first volley. The others tried to find cover, but there was none. They fell one by one, only Kron remained. He still had Valora. He still had his weapon. But he had nowhere to go. He was surrounded. Let her go, Commander Choi said. It is over, Kron laughed. A deep, bitter sound. Over? I still have one more card to play. He pressed the pistol harder against Valora's head. Give me a ship and safe passage or she dies. You have 10 seconds to decide. Hana stood up from behind her cover. Her rifle was empty. She had no more bullets. But she had something else. Her training, her determination, and the weapon itself. She started walking toward Kron. Her boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. Everyone saw her. The coalition soldiers. The freed prisoners. Kron himself, stay back. Kron shouted, I will kill her. Hana kept walking. She did not speak. She did not slow down. Her eyes were locked on Kron. She was 20 meters away. 15. Kron fired a warning shot. The plasma bolt passed centimeters from Hana's head. She did not flinch. She did not stop. 10 meters, what are you doing? Kron's voice had changed. He sounded uncertain now, afraid. Your weapon is empty. I can see it. You have nothing. Hana was 5 meters away. Close enough. She spoke for the first time since starting her approach. Her voice was calm, steady. You are right. This weapon is old. Then she moved. Fast. Faster than Kron expected from someone so much smaller. The rifle was not a gun anymore. It was a staff. A club, a lever. She struck his wrist. The plasma pistol flew from his hand. She spun, using the rifle's length to push Valora away. The doctor stumbled to safety. Kron roared and lunged at her. He was 3 times her size. His claws could tear metal, but Hana had fought bigger opponents before. She used his momentum against him, dropped low, drove the rifle's stock upward into his throat. The strike was precise, calculated, it crushed his windpipe. Kron fell to his knees, gasping. He tried to breathe and could not. His hands went to his throat. Coalition soldiers rushed forward and restrained him. It was over. 20 Draknor prisoners, all defeated. The hostages were free. The training deck was secure. Medical teams rushed in. They treated the wounded hostages. They stabilized Kron, who was still gasping for air. They checked everyone for injuries. Hana refused treatment. Her shoulder hurt, but it was nothing serious. She had work to do. She checked her rifle. The stock had a new crack. A small one, running from the trigger guard to the first carved name. She touched it gently. 5 generations of her family had carried this weapon. Now it had one more mark. One more story, Lieutenant Park. She turned. Commander Choi stood behind her. His expression was hard to read. Report to the briefing room in 1 hour. The ship's captain wants to speak with you. Yes, sir. Choi looked at the rifle in her hands. Then he looked at the training deck around them. Bodies were being removed. Debris was everywhere. Smoke still hung in the air. 20 hostiles. 1 friendly. 8 bullets. He shook his head slowly. I need to understand how you did this. I will explain everything in my report, sir. See that you do. He started to walk away, then stopped. And Park? Good work, Hana nodded. She did not smile. She did not feel victorious. She felt tired. The adrenaline was fading. Her body was starting to realize what it had just been through. Minho found her near the blast doors. He had a cut above his eye and bruises on his arms, but he was smiling. You saved us, he said. You actually did it. We are a team, Hana said. I just did my part. Your part involved killing 20 Draknor with 8 bullets and an empty rifle. Minho laughed. That is not normal, Hana. That is exceptional. Before Hana could respond, someone else approached. Captain Threlix. The Vanthorian's movements were stiff. He had been injured when the first explosion threw everyone to the ground. But he was walking. That was something. Threlix stopped in front of Hana. His mandibles moved in a way she had never seen before. It took her a moment to realize what it was. Respect. Lieutenant Park, he said. I owe you my life. I owe you an apology. No need, Hana said. Yes, there is. Threlix gestured at the training deck. I mocked your weapon. I called it primitive. I said technology was superior. I was wrong, he paused. You did not defeat us with superior equipment. You defeated us with superior thinking, superior skill, superior will. Hana did not know what to say to that. She settled for a simple nod. When you give your report, Threlix continued, I want to be there. I want to learn. My squad trains with the best equipment in the coalition, but equipment failed us today. We need to be better. You can teach us. I will try, Hana said. An hour later, Hana stood in the briefing room. The walls were covered with screens showing damage reports and security footage. A long table dominated the center of the room. The ship's captain sat at the head. Commander Choi sat to his right. Military analysts from 3 different species occupied the other seats. Captain Threlix was there too, as he had requested. Dr. Valora was also present. She sat near the back, her bioluminescent skin patterns pulsing softly. She gave Hana a small wave. Hana nodded back. The captain stood. He was Torvaxian, a species known for their logical minds and military precision. Lieutenant Park, we have reviewed the security footage. We have read your preliminary report. What we witnessed is remarkable. Before we discuss specifics, I want to ask you one question. He gestured at a screen showing Hana's rifle. Why do you use this weapon? It was the same question everyone asked. Hana had answered it many times, but she knew this time the answer mattered more. She chose her words carefully. This rifle is simple, she said. It has no computer, no sensors, no power source. It works with basic physics, chemistry, mechanical engineering. If I have ammunition and the parts are not broken, it functions. Always. One of the analysts, a being with multiple tentacles and large eyes, spoke up. But advanced weapons are more effective. They have greater accuracy, faster firing rates, larger ammunition capacity. They are more effective when they work, Hana said, but they also have more failure points. Power cells run out, computers malfunction, sensors get jammed, plasma systems overheat. I saw all of that today. Your advanced weapons failed when you needed them most. But surely, another analyst said, with proper maintenance and training, advanced weapons are superior. Maybe, Hana said. But there is another factor. My weapon forces me to think. Every shot matters because I have limited ammunition. I cannot rely on automatic targeting, so I must understand ballistics, wind, distance, temperature. I must know my environment completely. My weapon does not think for me. That is its greatest advantage. The captain leaned forward. Explain your tactics. How did you defeat 20 trained soldiers with 8 bullets? Hana pulled up the security footage on the main screen. She walked everyone through her actions. The first shot, the precision required, the psychological impact on the enemy. The first bullet was not just about killing one enemy, she explained. It was about creating fear. They did not know what weapon I was using. They did not know where I was. That uncertainty was a weapon too. She showed them the second shot, the fuel line, the explosion. I used the environment. One bullet created an explosion that killed 2 enemies and damaged their visibility. The training deck became my ally. Every pipe, every beam, every system was a potential weapon. The analysts took notes. They asked questions. Hana answered each one precisely. She showed them how she calculated each shot, how she moved through the maintenance tunnels, how she predicted enemy behavior. When she reached the final shot, the one that destroyed the holographic system, several of the analysts made sounds of surprise. You did not shoot an enemy, one of them said. You shot infrastructure. Yes, Hana said. Killing one more enemy would not have changed the situation. But removing their cover changed everything. It gave our rescue forces clear shots. 1 bullet had more impact than 12 bullets would have had. The captain stood again. He walked to the window overlooking the ship's exterior. Stars moved slowly past. What you did today challenges many of our assumptions about modern warfare. We have focused on technological advancement. Better weapons, faster computers, more automation, But we may have forgotten something important. He turned back to face the room. The weapon does not win the battle. The warrior does. Technology is a tool, but without the skill and intelligence to use it properly, it is just expensive equipment. Dr. Valora raised her hand. May I speak? Please, the captain said. Valora stood. Her skin pattern shifted to calm blues and greens. I have studied human psychology since your species joined the coalition. There is something unique about how humans approach problems. You maintain traditions while embracing innovation. You keep old methods alive even as you develop new ones. Lieutenant Park's rifle is an example of this. It represents centuries of proven effectiveness. She trusts it because generations of her family trusted it. That is not stubbornness. That is wisdom. She gestured at the screen showing the battle. But more than that, humans are adaptable. When faced with impossible odds, you improvise. You use whatever resources are available. You turn limitations into advantages. Today, Lieutenant Park had 8 bullets. That should have been a crippling limitation. Instead, she made it work. She found ways to multiply the effect of each bullet. That is not just skill. That is a mindset, a way of thinking that other species could learn from. The room was quiet for a moment. Then one of the analysts spoke. I recommend we incorporate human tactical doctrine into coalition training programs. Specifically, training that emphasizes adaptability, resource efficiency, and fundamental skills independent of technology. Several others agreed. The captain nodded. I will forward that recommendation to Coalition Command. In the meantime, Lieutenant Park, I am assigning you to develop a training curriculum. You will work with Captain Threlix's squad first. Show them what you showed us today. Yes, sir, Hana said. The briefing ended. People filed out, still discussing what they had seen. Threlix approached Hana one more time. When do we start training? He asked. Tomorrow, Hana said. Be ready to work. We will be. Threlix's mandibles clicked, but this time it sounded like respect, not mockery. Thank you, Lieutenant, for everything. After everyone left, Hana stood alone in the briefing room. She looked at the screen showing her rifle, the old weapon that everyone had ridiculed, the weapon that had saved lives today. She thought about her great-grandfather, about all the soldiers in her family who had carried this rifle before her. They had faced their own impossible odds. They had survived. They had won. And now she had done the same. The rifle was not just a weapon. It was a legacy. A reminder. A promise that humanity would always find a way, no matter the odds. 3 weeks passed. The training deck had been repaired. The damage from the battle was gone. Everything looked new again. But everyone who had been there that day remembered. They would always remember. Hana stood in the center of the deck. 20 soldiers stood in front of her. 10 Vanthorians from Captain Threlix's squad. 10 humans from various units. They all wanted to learn from her. They all wanted to understand how she had done what she did. Today we start with the basics, Hana said. She held up her rifle. The crack in the stock had been repaired. The weapon looked as solid as ever. This is a tool. Like any tool, it only works if the person using it understands how it works. How many of you have fired a weapon without computer assistance? 2 humans raised their hands. None of the Vanthorians did. That is the first problem, Hana said. You trust your technology to aim for you, to calculate for you, to think for you. What happens when that technology fails? We are trained for equipment failures, one of the Vanthorians said. We carry backup weapons, and if those fail too? Hana asked. 3 weeks ago your plasma rifles overheated. Your targeting systems were jammed. Your backup systems were compromised. You had the best equipment in the coalition. It was not enough. The soldiers looked uncomfortable. Hana was not trying to insult them. She was stating facts. They needed to hear this. Equipment is important, Hana continued, but it is not the most important thing. The most important thing is your mind, your ability to adapt, your understanding of fundamental principles. Today you will learn to shoot without computer assistance. You will learn to calculate trajectory manually. You will learn to read wind and temperature. You will learn what soldiers on Earth learned hundreds of years ago. She spent the next hour teaching them basic ballistics, how bullets fly, how gravity affects them, how air resistance changes trajectory. The human soldiers understood quickly. They had some exposure to these concepts. The Vanthorians struggled at first. They were used to computers doing this work, but they learned. Slowly, they began to understand. Threlix was particularly attentive. He asked good questions. He took detailed notes. His pride had been replaced by genuine curiosity. After the lecture, Hana took them to the firing range. She had set up targets at various distances. 200 meters, 300, 400, difficult shots for beginners. You will each fire 10 shots, she said. No computer assistance. Use your eyes. Use your brain. Learn what works. The results were poor at first. Most shots missed completely. A few hit the targets, but far from the center. The soldiers were frustrated. They were elite warriors. They were not used to missing. Good, Hana said. Now you understand the problem. Your technology made you skilled at using technology. It did not make you skilled at shooting. There is a difference. They trained for 3 hours. By the end, some soldiers were hitting targets consistently. Others were improving. Everyone was learning. The transformation was visible. After training ended, Minho approached Hana. They are learning fast, he said. They are good soldiers, Hana said. They just needed to learn a different way of thinking. Will you teach me too? Minho asked. I mean, really teach me? Like your father taught you? Hana looked at him. Minho was a good soldier. He used modern weapons well, but there was something in his eyes. A desire to understand more, to be better. Yes, she said. Meet me here tomorrow morning early. Bring your plasma rifle. We will see what you can do. Minho smiled. Thank you. That evening, Hana went to the ship's workshop. It was a large space filled with tools and equipment. Engineers worked on various projects. Repair work, upgrades, maintenance. She found an empty workbench in the corner. She laid her rifle on the bench. The weapon had served her well. It had saved lives. But it needed care. Maintenance was part of the discipline. Her father had taught her that too. She disassembled it carefully. Each part was removed and inspected. The barrel, the bolt, the trigger mechanism, the firing pin. Everything was cleaned and oiled. Every surface was examined for wear or damage. While she worked, Dr. Valora entered the workshop. The doctor saw Hana and walked over. May I watch? She asked. Of course. Valora pulled up a stool. She watched Hana's hands move over the weapon. You do this often? After every use, Hana said. Sometimes just to check. The rifle is reliable, but only if I maintain it properly. It is beautiful, Valora said. Not in the way most weapons are beautiful, but in its simplicity. Its honesty. There is nothing hidden. Everything serves a purpose. That is why it works, Hana said. She reassembled the firing pin assembly. Complex systems have more failure points. Simple systems are more reliable. I have been thinking about what happened, Valora said. About why you succeeded where others might have failed. I think I understand now. You were not trying to fight fairly. You were trying to win? Yes. Most soldiers in the coalition are trained to fight with honor, with rules. But you fought to survive, to protect others. You used every advantage, every trick, every resource. That is what made the difference. Hana slid the bolt back into place. My father told me something when I was young. He said that honor is important. Rules are important, but survival is more important. If you die with honor, you are still dead. Better to live and learn from the experience. Wise words, Valora said. Your father sounds like a good teacher. He was. Hana's voice was quiet. Her father had died 5 years ago. Combat injury that turned into an infection. She had been off-world when it happened. She never got to say goodbye. Valora seemed to sense the pain. She changed the subject. What will you do with the rifle when you retire? Will you pass it to someone? If I have children, they will inherit it, Hana said. If not, I will find someone worthy. Someone who understands what it represents. What does it represent? Hana ran her hand along the wooden stock. She felt the carved names. 5 generations of warriors. It represents memory, tradition, the knowledge that what worked before will work again. It represents the idea that we do not need to abandon the old to embrace the new. We can have both. She picked up a small engraving tool. Carefully, she carved 8 small marks into the stock. 8 lines, each one representing a bullet. Not kills. She did not count kills. These marks represented problems solved, challenges overcome. Will you tell your children about what happened? Valora asked. If I have children, yes. I will tell them the truth. That I was scared. That I did not know if I would succeed. That I almost gave up several times. But I remembered my training. I remembered my family. And I did what needed to be done. Valora smiled. That is a good lesson. Better than stories of fearless heroes. Real courage is being afraid and acting anyway. Hana finished the engraving. 8 marks. She put the tool down and reassembled the rest of the rifle. When she was done, she worked the bolt action. The sound was clear and perfect. Everything functioned properly. It is ready, she said. For the next battle? For whatever comes next, Valora stood. Thank you for letting me watch. And thank you for saving my life. I will not forget it. You are welcome. After Valora left, Hana sat alone with her rifle. The workshop was quiet now. Most of the engineers had finished their work and gone to their quarters. She looked at the weapon in her hands, the old rifle that everyone had mocked, the weapon that had proven its worth. She thought about the future, about the training she would do, about the soldiers she would teach, about the changes that might come to coalition military doctrine, all because of 8 bullets and an old rifle. But she also thought about the past, about her great-grandfather, about her grandfather, about her father, about all the soldiers who had carried this weapon before her. They had all faced impossible odds. They had all survived. They had all passed their knowledge forward. Now it was her turn, not just to carry the rifle, but to carry the lessons it represented: adaptability, resourcefulness, the understanding that the warrior matters more than the weapon. These lessons had kept humanity alive for thousands of years. They would keep humanity alive for thousands more. Hana stood and slung the rifle over her shoulder. She left the workshop and walked through the ship's corridors. Other soldiers passed her. Some nodded respectfully. Some whispered to their companions. She was becoming known. The human who defeated 20 Drachnor with 8 bullets. But she did not feel like a hero. She felt like a soldier who had done her job. A soldier who would keep doing her job. A soldier who would teach others to do the same. She reached her quarters. The door slid open. Inside was simple. A bed, a desk, a locker for her equipment, photos of her family on the wall, her father in his uniform, her grandfather, her great-grandfather, all of them holding the same rifle she carried now. She placed the rifle in its rack. She touched it one more time. A promise, a reminder. Then she turned off the lights and went to bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new training, new opportunities to prove that the old ways still had value. As she drifted off to sleep, she thought about the question everyone kept asking. How did you do it? How did you defeat their entire platoon with 8 bullets? The answer was simple. She did not fight with 8 bullets. She fought with 8 generations of knowledge. 8 generations of warriors who had learned to survive. 8 generations who had proven that humanity did not need the best equipment to win.